On the board right now, you see probably the most common application of refraction, and that's called curved lenses. There are two kinds of curved lenses in general. There's kind of subtypes of each of these, but two general kinds of curved lenses. We call them concave and convex. The convex curved lens is also known as a converging lens. So be prepared to see and recognize both of these terms. They both mean the same thing. A lens, a piece of glass, a piece of plastic that refracts light that is bulged out in the middle. Looks something like this as a cross section. It's thicker in the middle than it is at the edges. The other kind of curved lens is a concave lens, also known as a diverging lens. Concave, caved in the middle, thinner in the middle than it is at the edges if you look at it from the side. There's a picture right beside the convex lens of the converging lens of a magnifying glass. It magnifies things, right? It makes things bigger. You put it in front of a newspaper when you're having trouble seeing it, it makes it bigger. You put it in front of some kind of biological specimen that you're trying to observe the parts of a little bit bigger and large, okay? It makes it bigger. Magnifying glasses make things bigger, right? Convex lenses or converging lenses make things bigger, right? Take a look at the picture on the right-hand side there. Okay, that's a picture of Chris Hadfield, who I'm sure all of you know who Chris Hadfield is, right? Up until a year or two ago was the commander of the International Space Station. Took a whole bunch of pictures and then tweeted them from space and put them on Facebook and put them on whatever from space. Okay? I subscribed or I followed him on Twitter. I got these pictures delivered every day. This one came and I thought this is perfect. It was perfect for what we're doing today. He's got a droplet of water in front of his face. It's convex, right? It's thicker in the middle than it is at the edges. Someone takes a picture of this drop of water in front of his face. What do you see? It hasn't magnified his face, has it? This magnifying glass makes the text bigger and right side up. This magnifying glass, which is a drop of water but acts the same way, makes his face smaller and upside down. His two eyes are down here and his nose is up here. Why? Well, today we're going to learn to draw ray diagrams to see why. To see why sometimes with a particular type of lens that refracts light in a very predictable way, why sometimes you get one image, but why other times you get a different image. At the bottom you see concave or diverging lenses. The example that I have for that is eyeglasses. This is your eye, okay? Or this is at least my eye, or a representation at least of my eye. There's the lens of my eye. I don't know a lot about the eye. You guys, if you take biology, would know way, way more about the parts of the eye than I do. Okay, all I know is that that's the lens of my eye. This is the retina. And I know that the rays of light are supposed to focus on my retina. But when I take my glasses off, they don't. The rays of light focus in front of my retina because the lens in my eye doesn't work properly. The muscles in my eye don't change the shape of the lens enough to cause the light to refract in the right place. The lens of my eye refracts the light too much and causes it to converge and focus in front of my retina. So by the time the light actually gets back to my retina, it's not converging. It's not in the same place. It's not all coming together. So I see a blur. So what do? I put a diverging lens or a concave lens in front of my eyes. Okay, anybody who wears glasses in here is probably the same issue. You're nearsighted. That means you can see things close by, but you can't see things far off. We have to spread the light out before it enters our eye so that the lens of our eye doesn't make it come together too soon, too far in advance of the retina. So we take a diverging lens. If you take your glasses off, by the way, anybody who wears glasses here, and look at it, you'll almost certainly see that the center of your lens is thinner than the edges. The middle is thinner than at the edges. Okay, that's concave. That's diverging. The rays of light, diagram's not great here actually, because the rays of light come through here, they spread apart like this, then they go through the lens of my eye and converge where they're supposed to. This corrective lens has corrected the path of the light so that it will converge at the point where it's supposed to, right? Today we're going to learn to draw ray diagrams for both of these. We're going to learn to analyze what the image is going to look like as a result of both of these types of lenses, both convex and concave. This first one is called convex, or converging. Don't draw this yet on the template that I gave you, okay? We're not ready to use that template that I photocopied for you and handed out a few minutes ago. We are soon, but not yet. I just want to label a few things on this first. So we're not using this yet. Just on a piece of paper, draw this out. The first thing that I want to label is what we call the optical center. The optical center, sometimes we abbreviate it OC. The optical center is the geometric center of the lens. It's the middle of the lens. You're not going to look into a lens and see a point like a little dot in the middle of the lens or a little X in the middle of the lens. It's this point, this invisible point that's geometrically in the center of that lens. This imaginary line that goes through the optical center and through the lens itself is what we call the principal axis. Sometimes we abbreviate that as a PA. This point right here, this point that's closest to the lens, we're going to call our focal point. Sometimes we abbreviate that as a lowercase f. Sometimes we might even abbreviate it as FP for focal point. I'll tell you what the significance of that focal point in just a moment here. This point right here, it's a little bit further out away from the lens than the focal point is. That's just kind of a spacer. It doesn't really have any significance in terms of how this lens works. You'll see what I mean by a spacer in just a few moments. Okay, when I start drawing ray diagrams, we use it as a guide to distance. Okay. Rays of light don't go through it. It doesn't do anything to the image. It's just a little spacer. It's a little indicator of distance. It's twice the focal length. So if this is 10 centimeters, then this would be 20 centimeters. It's twice the focal length. I want to go back to this focal point. That's really important for us. That is the most important thing that we have drawn up on the board right now, the focal point. The focal point is a point at which not all rays going through this lens, but all rays that go through this lens that are parallel to the principal axis will converge. So in other words, if I draw a ray right here, it will go through that focal point. If I draw a ray of light right here, it'll refract through that focal point. If I draw one right here, it'll go through that focal point. Way down here, well, assuming it actually hit the lens, it would go through that focal point. The significance of that point is that all rays of light that are parallel to the principal axis will go through that focal point. Now, there are other rays of light coming down through this lens, going up through this lens. They're not going to refract and converge at the focal point. We'll worry about those later on. For now, let's look at the ones that are parallel to the principal axis, which will converge at that spot. Got it? Now, when I want to draw a ray diagram to determine what the image looks like as a result of some kind of object, maybe it's the condos across the street, maybe it was the Canadian flag that I had on the board here a few minutes ago, maybe it's a person standing over there or a car over in the parking lot. Whenever I want to find an image of that object that's projected through the lens, then I draw a ray diagram. There are millions of rays of light that are coming off of that object and going through the lens. Millions. We're going to draw two of them, because these two are all that we need to see what the image is going to look like. And these two are very predictable. It's easy to determine what happens to them. The first ray of light that I'm going to draw every single time is that ray of light that reflects off of top of the object. This, by the way, is our object. That could be a car. It could be a person. It could be a house. It could be an animal. It could be a toy. Doesn't matter what it is. We represent it by an arrow just showing the top of the object and the bottom of the object. Our first ray of light reflects off of the top of the object parallel to the principal axis. How do we know it reflects there? Well, there's lots of rays that reflect everywhere. There's got to be one that reflects there. So let's pick that one, the one that reflects parallel to the principal axis. Hits the lens and then refracts or bends. Where's it going to bend? You guys know this, Dustin? To the focal point. I told you they were predictable. The first one is parallel to the principal axis. It's got to go through the focal point. Now, I don't know if any of you have kind of thought of this, but the ray of light, when I drew it like this, right, and then I drew it down like this, it doesn't really do that, okay? I'm cheating a little bit to get the results that I want to get. In the end, the results that I want to get are the correct results, but it doesn't quite happen the way that I drew that. The reality is that ray of light hits that boundary. It refracts like this, and then it refracts like this. But the end result is the same. If I draw it like this, I get the exact same result, and it's easier. So let's just draw it like that, even though it actually refracts twice instead of once. First ray parallel to the principal axis, down through the focal point. Second ray is going to also reflect off of the top of the object. There's a million more reflecting off of everywhere on the object, but we're going to pick the one that reflects off the top, down at an angle through the optical center of the lens. It's going to keep going straight through. Again, the reality is it's going to actually refract twice, but the net result is that it's going to be the same as if it went all the way through, just straight through. Now, this was my object over here. The bottom of that object was on the principal axis. The top was where the rays started. This is my image over here. The bottom of the image is at the principal axis, and the top of the image is where the rays converge, where they come together. That's my image. Why didn't they converge at the focal point? Because the second ray wasn't parallel to the principal axis. Now, for every diagram, every ray diagram that you draw, you're always going to be able to identify three characteristics, or sometimes we call them attributes, three attributes. The first one is based on size. Is the size of this image bigger, smaller, or the same size as the object? Look at this image right here. How does that size compare to the object right here? Bigger, smaller, same size? Smaller. So the image is smaller than the object. That's the first characteristic. That's why when I showed you the demonstration where I focused the convex lens on the condos across the street, projected the image onto the card, that's why you saw the image projected smaller. That's why the entire set of condos across the street would fit onto that piece of paper, because the image is smaller than the actual object. If it wasn't, then I would have saw a tiny part of one of the condos on that paper. The second characteristic is based on what we call orientation. Is it right side up or is it upside down? Well, relative to the object, this is going to be upside down, right? Let's call it inverted. If you wrote upside down, that would be fine. Flipped over, that would be fine. Anything that means the same thing as inverted would be fine. Third one is the tough one. The third one is whether the image is real or virtual? This one is real. Now, how do you know that? What is a real image, first of all, and how do you know that this one is a real image? A real image is an image that can be projected onto a screen. When I aimed that lens at the condos across the street, you saw the condos on that piece of paper. That image was projected onto a screen. That's a real image. If you look at a magnifying glass, you can't project the image of a newsprint that you're trying to look at on a piece of paper. You can't project it. You have to look through the lens to see it. That's a virtual. If you can project it onto a screen, it's real. If you can't, it's virtual. When you comb your hair in the mirror in the morning, in the bathroom, it's a mirror, it's not a lens, right? The same kind of analysis applies with the mirrors. We'll take a look at those next week, actually. Look in that mirror. You see yourself in that mirror. You can't project the image of yourself onto the wall behind you. You can't. Doesn't matter what you do. You can't project an image of yourself from that mirror onto the wall behind you. You have to look into the mirror in order to see it. That's a virtual image. You're seeing yourself, but you're not projecting it, so it's not real. It's a virtual image. When you can project it onto a screen, it's real. Can't, it's virtual. All right, so how do I know, if I hadn't just done the demonstration with the condos across the street, that this produces a real image, that I could project that onto the screen? Whenever you see solid lines intersect, you know that it's real. Now, you've never even seen a diagram where we even have dotted lines that aren't intersecting. You will shortly. When solid lines intersect, it's real. When dotted lines intersect, it's virtual, and you couldn't project it onto a screen. I'm not taking any virtual imaging. Yeah. Because I'm causing the rays from the real object, not the image, from the real object, which is the condos. I'm causing those rays to converge, to come together at a specific place, okay, which is where the card is placed. Now, when you just hold the card there, the rays of light are still striking that card, but they're not coming together. They're not converging. So you're not going to produce any kind of image unless rays of light actually converge. Does that make sense? Let's try the second one. Same two rays. I'll draw the second diagram, though. This time, notice our object is a little closer to the lens. This time our object is at, if this is F, this is 2F. Now, understand, the focal point is actually on this side. I've only drawn them on this side as spacers. But it's the equivalent of twice the focal length away from the lens. First ray, parallel to the principal axis, down through the focal point. Second ray, down through the optical center. The object is over here. The image is over here, from the principal axis to where the rays converge. Three characteristics. Is the image larger, smaller, or the same size as the object? Okay, question. Yeah, I think I do. The question was, if you didn't hear that, I guess, if there's a whole bunch of different rays reflecting off of that object, why are we getting this jumbled image? We're picking two, right? So, you know, why? Because we picked those two. Are those two special? Well, they're not special. They're just predictable. If I picked another one, let's say I picked this ray. Sometimes in textbooks you'll actually see this ray drawn. And we don't need to draw it, so we don't. If I do this one, through the focal point on that side, not through the focal point, because it's not really on that side, but the equivalent distance of the focal point, it would refract parallel to the principal axis and converge right there. If I do another one down here, well, without these other rays here, I can't predict where that's going to go. But the reality is, it would end up going right there. So they all end up converging at the same place. That produces the top of the image. Now, if you picked an object, or sorry, a ray from the middle of the image, the object, I should say, through it, where would it go? Down here, to the middle of the object, the middle of the image, I should say, and so on. So if you drew a million rays coming off of this, and you did them in the right place, then you would find that the image still looked exactly the same. Does that make sense? We just draw two because A, they're very predictable, and B, because we know what happens with those two. Sorry, they're very predictable, and B, because that's all we need to draw to get the image. What are the characteristics of this image? Larger, smaller, same size? Same size. That's not bigger or smaller. We look at the image, it's the same size as the object. It's not bigger, not smaller, it's the same size. Is it upside down or right side up? Upright or inverted? Look at it. It's flipped over. It's below the principal axis. It's got to be inverted. Flipped over. Is it real or virtual? Well, we haven't done an experiment that shows whether this one is real or virtual, but we can still determine whether it's real or virtual. Solid lines are intersecting, which means it's got to be real. It means if we wanted to, we could project it onto a screen. If we put a screen right here, a piece of paper right there, we would see an image formed on that screen right there. It was the same size, it was upside down, and it was actually projected onto that screen. Let's draw another one. We've got 5 total. I want to see if we can get through all 5 of these here today. Yep. Yes. Yes. The question was, is it never not inverted? In other words, is it ever right side up? Yes, it is. Obviously, we haven't seen one of those yet, but you will within the next couple of diagrams here. Next one. We've got our object placed somewhere in between F and 2F, distance away from the lens. First ray, parallel to the principal axis, down to the focal point. Where's that second ray go? And there's a million of them, right? Lucas said a minute ago, we could draw a million of them. Why do we draw these two? Because they're predictable. This one goes from the top of the object down to the optical center, keeps going straight through. Object goes from principal axis to the lines. Image goes from principal axis to the lines. This image is bigger, smaller, or same size as the object. Look at the size of this. Physically, look at the size of this. Okay, move my fingers over there. The image to me looks to be bigger or larger, right? It's inverted. It's flipped over relative to the object. And since solid lines intersect, it is free. We could project this onto a screen. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to. We could put a screen right there and view the image on that screen. But there's no reason why we can't just literally stand right here, look through the lens, and see the image. We can. We can still see it by looking through the lens. We just don't have to look through the lens like we do with a virtual image. Okay, we can project it onto a screen if we want. That's a real image. Next one. This time our object is at the focal length. It's not the focal point. This is the focal point. But it's the same distance on the other side of the lens as the focal point is. First ray, parallel to the principal axis, down through the focal point. Second ray, down through the optical center. Do these guys converge? Or do they come together? They're parallel, right? They don't come together. There is no image formed here. I started off with an object really far away from the lens. It produced a really small image, but upside down. Then I moved it closer. It produced a bigger image, a little bit bigger than it was before, but still upside down. Moved it even closer, produced an even bigger image, but still upside down. Now what am I producing? No image. You might be able to guess, based on some semblance of a pattern here, what the next one's going to look like. We went from small upside down to bigger upside down to even bigger upside down. Then we have no image. Anybody want to guess what the next one's going to look like before we draw it? First ray, parallel, down through the focal point. Second ray, down through the optical center. They don't come together. They don't converge, but they're not parallel. So let's do this. Let's extend the refracted rays back with dotted lines. Those dotted lines converge back here. Characteristics of this one. This is our object and this is our image. Our image is clearly larger than our object is. It's bigger. It magnified it. It's upright. Cassidy asked a question a few minutes ago. Is there ever a time when the image is upright? Yes, this is it. Just hold on before you pack up, okay? It's real or virtual? Virtual means we can't project it onto a screen. Okay? This is a movie theater. This is the projector that you're viewing the image on right now. You're producing a real, upside down, larger image. Why is it upside down? What you see right now is right side up, right? Look at the projector. The projector on the ceiling is upside down. The image is being flipped over. Okay, it's projected onto a screen. This one, what is this? It's not a projector at a movie theater. It's a magnifying glass. Put the lens really close to the object, make a bigger right side up image that you have to look through the lens in order to see. Okay, it's a magnifying glass. All right, that's it for today, guys. Tomorrow we'll finish drawing the ray diagrams on the opposite side, do a little bit of math with that, then we'll finish off the week.